gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's rock.
Bang, bang, everybody. What's happening? So, as you see, we have some new content. Thank you, Julie. All the way from across the pond in England, banging out our video and our starting clips and our overlays. She's been working tirelessly to make this possible and as great as it could be. We are still waiting on Sammy to join us in the green room. So he should be here shortly. It's been a long time since we've had a Sunday morning. We're excited to have our Sunday mornings back. We're definitely excited about the creation of the new content that we're doing, our 30 and 30, which will be our weekday streams, you guys. Sammy and I will be coming on nightly between 8:30 and 9 p.m. To do a short stream, just like a 45-minute to an hour, working at the same thing we work on our Sundays normally, but during the weeks, for those of you who can't make it during the weekends, you can definitely join us during the week. And remember, everybody, like, this content is here. You can go to the Ocor Racine page to see any of our past content. Like, it's always there. It's always going to be there. It's also, you can go to YouTube, which is OCOR Racine, and pick up any of our content and our videos there as well. And then we are building our TikTok. So that is Formers Anon, FORMERSANON, the number 1. If you look it up, add us, please. We need to get to 1,000 to go ahead and start doing our lives on there. So it's really important that you do that. And then, like, I'm going to say now, love you, Joel. Hey, Aunt Chris, good morning. I don't know why I can't hear this video. Great day and wishes for you and yours. Hey, chat, if anybody else is having problems hearing, shoot a comment up there. If you can hear me, shoot a comment so that I know you can hear me. Let's do a sound check. I'm not sure if my microphone is working correctly. Let's get a sound check going. Sounds great for Jewel. Thank you, Julie. Anybody else here in the States? Can you hear me? I see we're starting to get some people coming in. Hold on, look. Sammy's in the green room right now, hearing you. Good morning, brother. Good morning, Tone. Hey, Sammy's in the green room right now. I just seen him taking a bite of something. Hold on, let's add him before he's ready. What's up, bro? I try to get you while you're eating that, whatever it was. What's happening?
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't know if you've seen our intro, Sammy. Julie has been banging out the work. She's got a bunch of new stuff in here going for us, and she's going to build some more. But we have an all-new introduction, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. It was pretty fucking banging. We have an outro as well now. We'll keep building on this, man, and keep growing. So, Sammy, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, man. I stayed up late last night. Samaya had on homecoming.
Oh, how'd it go?
Typical for teenagers, drama, but had fun. So
I'm glad to hear it. I'm sad to hear it as well. Like, I remember when she was a 5-year-old
4 or 5, yeah.
4 or 5-year-old little gangster running through my pockets every time I came to the house. Hey, Theo, what do you got in your pocket? Not money anymore.
I remember it got so bad. I walked in the door one day and it was Selena's. Her greeting was, "Give me money."
Right.
Man, I checked the shit out of her. I remember checking. I was like, "Excuse me? Like, you greet me before you do any of that shit." You know?
Hey, listen, they did. Like, they were good about it, man. When they hit me up, it was always, "Hey, Theo, what do you got in your pocket?"
Give me money.
And my babies, man. I love them girls. They're so sweet. Selena's
Now
hit
they
me
use
up.
honey to get it. You know?
Right. Selena's hit me up a couple weeks back, and she was like, "Hey, Theo, I just want you to know how much I love you and how much you mean to me in my life." And it was just, yeah, and it was just a random thing, man. And like, so don't laugh, you guys. I cried. And what's up, Emilio? I cried a little bit, and it just touched my heart that, you know, she was concerned and worried for my.
They're very loving, man. They're very loving.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a text message out of the blue the other day. It was like, "Hey, just checking in. How you doing?" Like, I was just shocked. I was like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Dude, man, it's good when you raise them right. Missy, hey, you're back. We missed you too. So, Missy, everybody who's here, we got what, 8, 9 people watching right now. Please remember, drop a comment, participate, like, share on public. It helps with our algorithm. So, Missy, it's been a while. Let me fill you in and everybody else who's watching.
That's on my end. Sorry, I was just clicking on your live.
You're good. We are building our TikTok. So if you guys would like to, please head over to Formers Anon, FORMERSANON, the number 1, and follow that. We need to get to 1,000 followers on that so that we can start producing live streams for them as well. We will be releasing clips to Formers. So just, you know, be ready for it. It'll start coming out. We'll start sharing it with you guys. I love all of you guys. Your guys' support has been amazing. I see you, Bobby. I seen that share. It popped up in my feed immediately. Bobby, good looking, bro.
You know, tell them that they might see some like requests to follow as a way of helping, you know, like helping everyone find our page.
Absolutely. I'm sending out requests daily, or following people daily. So if you see our follow us back.
And if I'm following you from TikTok, like that, I'm just creating a link because through my page you can find Formers Anonymous too. So
absolutely,
we're just trying to connect with all of our friends and followers on that platform so that we can go live eventually.
So just so you guys know, we will be doing nightly short live broadcasts. It'll be between 8:30 and 9. We'll start. It'll be between, you know, half hour to an hour long of content. It's all going to be the same direction of content that we're doing now. Remember, also, if you guys are there and you have something you want to say and you want to talk, I'll take credit for my daddy watching you. We'll tell you, Dad, we love him and thank him. If you guys want to come in to the show and talk to us, all you have to do is DM us, leave a comment and say, hey, send me the link. We'll send you a link. Just remember the 3 rules that I had since starting OCOR, which is the parent channel for our live right now. There's no hate speech, there's no bullying, and there's no calls to violence. Those are my only rules. Otherwise, I want to know your opinion, whether it's controversial, whether it's in agreement with me and Sammy. Speak your mind, you know, have your voice heard. I'll still come on soon. Heck yeah.
And it's got to be about,
right, Missy.
It's got to be about related to change and recovery. You know, that's
absolutely
a pretty broad window, but you know, we are on trying to get are they in the Super Bowl today?
No, they're not.
My bad.
I thought the Bears were.
No,
apparently they bought tickets.
You don't watch football if that's what you thought. That wasn't even a dig. That just shows ignorance right there. That's
So listen, my Chargers have been there once. They'll be there again one day.
Did they make it to the playoffs even?
Oh no, there was no chance of playoffs this year, man.
I'm just wondering, thinking
Yeah,
out loud.
no.
Just thinking out loud.
What's up, Kurt? Yeah, man, I'm a Charger fan, bro. I was going through my photos last night and I found a bunch of old photos my mom sent. And one of them was me at like my 7th birthday party in a Chargers jersey. And I'm like, die hard from the day I was born, man. Like, no matter how bad we play, I'm there. Like, them my boys.
What am I gonna do way out here in the middle of nowhere now that football's gonna be over after? I was like telling you, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my Monday night, my Thursday night,
Yeah.
my Sunday morning, my Sunday night. Like, that's 4 days out of the week I was glued to the TV watching football. Now it's just gonna be like empty spaces.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Content creation is what we're gonna do. You guys,
there you go.
You guys know
That's a very professional answer.
I've recently left O'Reilly's. Ended my relationship, my professional relationship with them, although I still have my commercial account and still love their parts. I am now dedicating my time and my days to this. It's been a long time coming. Sammy and I have been beating around the bush about it for several years, and we sat down and talked about it. It's time that we push what we're doing to the next, through the next barricade of,
we're the next
level.
Joe Rogan, but without the
racism,
politics. Yeah.
Stinky politics and racism.
I'm just using. Is there a better example? I don't know. His podcast is like
man.
They said he has more views than there are people in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap.
Listen, I've been a Joe Rogan fan for years before watching his show. Like the stuff he's done, the person he's built from. But yeah, recently there's been some stuff that has been pretty controversial that he said about Native Americans, about our heritage, about our history. And I don't know whether he believes that or if he just says it to get those clicks and views. But I was very unappreciative of it, so I kind of stopped watching his.
Yeah, and I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. I don't subscribe or anything, but he's trying to walk some of that back. He got really. He put his foot in his mouth in a really bad way, but teach his own. But at the same time, I agree with you. I always wonder about. You can always tell a lot about who he has on his show, like where his mindset is at. But
morning, Christina. Well, listen, on that end, right? Like, I'm a huge science fan. Like, science is a huge part of my free time, my pastime. And Neil deGrasse is like a huge human being in my heart that I love to listen to because he's so smart and he's so respectful, intelligent, and logical, right? And that's when I first started watching Joe Rogan, is when him and Neil talked for like 3 hours. And then, there's a lot of other people that he's had on there, Bill Nye. I just liked a lot of his content. And so I started watching and subscribing. And then, some of the controversial stuff came out, the COVID-related misinformation that bothered me. And so I just stopped watching them. But anyways, yeah.
Amy joined us. Wow.
Good morning, Amy.
Hello, Amy.
Morning. Hey, Kirk. I love you, bro. Kirk and I have been friends since I was a kid. He's been one of my greatest supporters in life. Like, he believed in me when there was nothing to believe in. We used to call him the booger, but he was badass from top to bottom in his soul. He was one of the most loving friends I've ever had. I love you, bro. I'm glad to see you here. Kirk, good morning. I'm running a little slow this morning, making waffles. We just got on here, Amy. And just so you know, you can catch us nightly. You were my conscience, brother. You said that in the greatest way. You stopped me from doing a lot more damage than I could have. Joe's mad at me. I may have broke the shower trying to fix it. Amy, just so you know, we'll be out here nightly, Monday through Friday. Between 8:30 and 9, we'll start our lives. We're going to do short lives nightly together and separate. I'll be gone from February 28th, you guys, until March 5th. I will not be a part of any real content. I'll be on the East Coast having my honeymoon. I'm going to Atlantic City, and then We're not going to Atlantic City, you guys, to go to Atlantic City. I'm not a big gambler. I always feel like I'm losing even if I win. So, but we did want to go there because it was super cheap because they want you to go there. So for under $1,000, I got flights, a rental car, and a hotel room for 5 days, 6 days, 5 nights. And then we're going to travel the East Coast. We're going to New York. We're going to Washington, D.C. We might shoot up to Boston to see a friend of ours. We're going to hit Philly. We're going to hit Coney Island if we can. We're going to spend 5 days enjoying things we've never seen. I'm going to see the Statue of Liberty. I'm going to the 9/11 Museum and Memorial. We plan on, I want to go to see the National Cathedral. Like all the touristy crap that everybody says you shouldn't do is what I want to do. And so we're going to go enjoy 5 days. So I won't be here those days. Sammy will pick up the slack as he can and produce as much content as he can. Because if he doesn't, we're not going to be friends anymore.
True story. True fucking story.
Fucking A, bro. So, listen, the last time we were on, which was 2 days ago, we were talking about the differences of Formers Anonymous from other 12-step groups. If you guys want to see that, I'll come one and sub. Just you can go right back to our page and take a look at it. You can go to Ocor Racing on YouTube, or you can go to Facebook where it is Our Community, Our Responsibility Racing, and you can see all of our past videos. Sammy, what do you want to talk about today, bro?
You know, that's a good question. Let's before I jump in, are there any topics in the chat? Like, let's poll the chat. Are there any things you want to dive into? And anything to do with life, anything to do with people, anything to do with people, places, or things. I mean, like, we cover the gambit, right? Like, there is so much, and I am sad. I mean, this might sound petty, but I'm sad football's over because, like, that I mean, I'm going to celebrate today. I'm slowly becoming. How about getting back on the wagon if you follow? Yeah, that's a great one, Amy.
Relationship recovery, Missy.
Amy, if you have fallen off the wagon, you need to call me.
And this is where you should be, just so you know, you guys, if you're out there and you're watching and you've recently had a mistake and you've fallen and you feel like you're at step 0 again, you're not.
And to be clear, though, Amy's riding motorcycles, so that's what I'm talking about.
Listen, and packing guns, right? Like, if you fall off the wagon, Amy, call us, come see us. Like, whatever we got to do, you're on 2 wheels, and if you've fallen off the wagon, I fear for society.
Why does Amy need her own series around like mob women in recovery type shit, right?
Like, gangster to her core. And listen, such a contrast in personality and looks, right? This little bitty, beautiful.
She's got the perfect alibi for just being nice.
This little blonde-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful woman, like short, sweet, walked up to me the first day you introduced us, and I'm like, wow, why would she even be here? I hugged, and then her opening statement was, I came here instead of going to the warehouse and shooting my husband and his friends. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Hi. My name's Funday. I'm a former, and I'm sorry for anything a man has done. More times I was like,
Amy's the reason we exist. We got you, Amy. So, relationship recovery. Susie Sunshine. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Dude. Quick story about Amy. I'm sitting in our office on Washington Avenue. My parole officer, Jason Lukey, comes in to see me. And Amy walks in the door to the office and immediately opens the safe and starts pulling her gun out, her knife, and putting it all in the safe. And my PO is sitting there like this. And he goes, are we okay? And I'm like, yeah, we're good. She has a safe. Hey, that was the craziest meeting I ever had with a parole officer, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, bro. And he was like, no, it's her safe. It's her, it's the office. It's a public area. Like, not a problem, bro, as long as you don't have access to it. I was like, nope, nowhere near me. Like, she has her own lock, her own key, her own combo. But yeah, dude, she has always been 100% gangster since the moment I met her.
Yeah, it puts a new perspective on it.
What are we doing to get our faces out in the public more? This right here.
Right. Yeah, baby. And the question is, what are you doing to help us get our face out in the public audience? Because what we need are, and literally this, you're going to hear this, and I understand why. And here's the other thing. There's a part B to this. So liking, things in the post, leaving emojis, sharing.
Share, baby, share.
Those things are critical. However, what I'm learning about TikTok, because I'm trying to research what it takes to be successful in TikTok. The people who do follow us also have to interact with the content on an ongoing basis. So one that I was looking at why you might get 1,000 followers and then why all of a sudden you dip below it. And it says that if your followers don't interact with your content, that they're seen as like bots or ghost followers, and they'll eliminate them. So
hell yeah, Jim.
I mean, that's a good start, Jim. It's a great, when we can get them to come to the meetings as participants.
I was like, quit picking on fucking Jim.
So we need folks
yeah,
to,
brother.
They got to interact with us, right? They got to join the lives. They got to, touch the buttons. They got to share the information. Hell yeah, spread the message. That's what last week we were talking about, spreading the message, towards the end of the meeting. So let's get into it, man. Let's talk about, look, we can combine recovery, relationship recovery, and also talk about what to do when we fall off the wagon. We didn't talk about that. We talked about that not too long ago, right? And what? First, I gotta give you a shout out, Monte. I think it's incredible. Like the amount of absorption of our literature, of our basic principles and concept. Like you do embody those, brother. And I do appreciate that. Like
I've been sitting in this barber chair for 11 years. Eventually, I got my hair cut.
Yeah, no, I got you, bro. And and I have, when I go out and I meet with my elders, my mentors, I bring that back too. And that's to me, that is the way we honor the literature and honor the spirit. And it really isn't about any one person or any one thing. It's about the spirit of things, right? And we're just looking to help improve positions in life for people, man. Like that's it. And
are we creating bonds through recovery?
I hope so, man. And it's the way that recovery is supposed to work, right? I have always said that. Well,
I love Kirk.
PG. I have always said that the point of recovery is not the literature and it's not the steps.
No doubt.
The literature and the steps are leading you to the point of recovery, but they in them of themselves are not the point of. And I think that can get, and this is an important point to you, Missy, and to Amy. I think I've seen other groups believe that the 12 steps were the point. But that would be like saying that the road signs on the highway are the destination.
Right. You
can't get to where you're going unless you're some type of savant, without road signs, and you need all kind of road signs, right? You need to know where the gas is, where the bathrooms are, where the rest stops are, the general direction that you're going in. You need the GPS, the maps, like you need all those tools, right? But no one ever said that was the best GPS experience I ever had. Like that is, but you can't do it without it.
Right.
And you don't want to. And there's some fucker on here like, oh, I could, challenge accepted. Yeah. There are always folks like that, but the problem is you need to work smarter, not harder. And eventually, you said I've been doing this 11 years. I've been doing this a long time too. And what I recognize, and we talk about this principle of it doesn't get easier.
No.
Right? However, you get stronger. But you're never so strong that you can afford to stop working that muscle. Right? It's because my max deadlift at a competition, I only count the competition lift, is 535 pounds. In the gym, my max deadlift is 640 pounds.
Right.
I struggled to lift 400 pounds this past weekend. Right? But I haven't been doing it. However, and this goes back to what me, you, and Amy were talking about on 2 shows ago, maybe 2 shows ago. One thing, I haven't deadlifted in almost a year, maybe more. And maybe
I still hit 400.
And I still hit 400. And here's where it comes. Here's the lesson that we know, that I've always known, and I wasn't surprised. I knew it would be in there. Even Alex said, the body remembers, right? So when we talk about falling off the wagon and getting back on, look, I didn't have to start over, at 100 pounds to deadlift.
Right.
Right? Because I still had it in me. I still had that strength in me where I could still lift 400 pounds. Right? Now, and if I get caught up in comparing myself, if I get caught up in comparing myself to what I used to be able to do, that 400 pounds will feel like a failure. Yep. And that's the shit that will have me not going back to the gym, right? Not wanting to try. However, if I see it as a plus and say, okay, I still have some of this, I still can do some of this, right? It's what recovery is built like. If you fall off, all is not lost, right? All is not lost. You don't just have to start over, and you don't actually get to start over because you can't forget everything you learned. Now, here's the question though. Here's the thing. Am I satisfied with that? Yeah, I am satisfied with that, but that does not mean I'm not going to keep going. I was in the gym yesterday for 2.5 hours, right? Bench pressing, whatever. Like, you still have to work those muscles, right? So when you fall back off, the important thing is, and here's what we want to do, and Amy can co-sign this, right? You want to hide your face out of shame. You're embarrassed. Mm-hmm. You have enormous amounts of guilt and shame. You're very hard on yourself. There was a guy at the gym yesterday, right? He was squatting 185, but he was standing. He had his heels on some plates to make it harder, like it leans him forward, right? And he has to push back. He did like 4 or 5 reps and he failed. He actually went to failure. So he went down and he couldn't get back up, so he had to put the weight down. And I saw him get up and he was so mad. Like, he was mad, right? And I don't know why. I just, I decided to reach out. I don't know this guy. I took my headphone off and I said, hey, that was a fucking good set, bro. He's like, man, I'm so pissed off. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be. I'm like, most folks won't push themselves to the point of failure when they come here. They play it safe and they only do as much as they can to look good. I mean, What you just did takes a lot of humility, and it actually embraces what the spirit of what we're doing in here is supposed to be. When you can push your body to fail. I bullshit you not. I don't know this kid. He's probably in his young 20s. Dude, I'm not lying. He started crying, said thank you, put his arm out, and then hugged me. Like it was like something he needed to hear, right? And that kind of messaging, right? Remember I told the spirit, the spirit of things, right? And so we know that when you're in recovery, we should not have an intolerance for relapse.
That's right.
Right? Because it's a part of it. Going to failure is often a part of the process. And the reason you do that is because the next time you will have additional strength to add to your rep. Right? Now, you don't have to fail every time you you try this process, eventually you will get it in stride. Right? Eventually you will get it in stride. And here's the good thing about him. Here's how, and this is recovery and relapse prevention, which are two different things, and we'll talk about that. He was squatting and he went to failure, but you know what he did to protect himself? He had the safety racks on. So he didn't just plan not to fail.
Right.
He's like, in case I fail, here's what I need to put into place to protect myself. That is the process of relapse prevention and recovery, right?
Totally
We
agree.
all have, and maybe in the chat, what are things that you do to protect yourself from yourself? You know, like to keep yourself from going to that extreme. You know, I always say if you shouldn't play with matches, then you shouldn't have matches in your home, right? Like it's if that is a real condition, right? Like you don't want to keep things around you that are easily accessible if you tend to abuse those things, whatever they may be. However, in time, in your recovery, in your change process, when you're actually in the process of changing, you probably could start doing things that you couldn't do before. And that is not me saying, hey, go smoke crack, see if you can control it. No, it's other things like maybe you know me, I don't preach avoidance as a permanent solution. I think avoidance can be an early, you know, mid-level process. For example, some folks won't step in a bar out of fear that they will lose control. You know, if you're still in that, I would say you're in the early stages of certain parts of your recovery, because what you'll realize is that you learn to deal with triggers. You learn to avoid those triggers, right?
Remember we just talked about that with me?
Say again?
My problem. Remember we just talked about that with me, and why, even though I'm not worried about becoming a drunken asshole or anything like that, I don't go to bars because of other assholes, right? And I know my inability. Well, no, I don't know. I haven't tested it, but I know that I tend to get aggressive with people who are assholes and bullies. And at a bar, what do you normally find? That one asshole, that one bully. It happens just about every time I've been in a bar. So for me, I just feel like, you know what? I don't have any interest in hanging out in bars because I don't like smelling other people's assholes.
I think I just got to say, Jim, yes, I think you should never, ever even live by a bar. Like just don't even go to a town that has a bar. Like move someplace where there's not a bar. There's not a watering hole anywhere in the next 200. Yes. Like, and that's what I mean. Like we have to and I'm just joking, but we have to tailor our recovery. But here's why this analogy is so important, right? You could play it safe in the gym your whole life, and you're only going to get so far. You're literally only going to get so far, right? And I'm saying like that's not good enough. Like the idea of recovery, you do want to play it safe to a point, but you have to take good risks, right? And what are good risks? Sometimes we have to learn to love again. And that can be a very hard risk. I know, and I know trust for me, for nobody on here, well, maybe a couple people would know. I'm very social, but I'm not always very trusting, and for good reason. My life has taught me that there are shitty people in the world. But my life is now teaching me that there are good people in the world. And so I am sticking my neck, so to speak, out there to be trusting again, to reach out again. You know, even at the gym last night, talking to that kid, you know how many fuckers don't say shit to anybody ever? You know, like it's all ego. Like everyone's afraid to say something. Like I compliment people on their lifts all the fucking time. There was a girl fucking deadlifting 300 pounds yesterday. I just give her a thumbs up, you know, like, fuck yeah, you know, like, but everyone's afraid. And that's the thing, like, you got to be able to break that bubble, right? You got to be able to make that, you got to make that step towards a new life. Now, this is not promoting doing dangerous things that are dangerous to you. No. What I'm saying is, in the normal course of life, there may be things that you have avoided that might take you out of things that you would like to do. For example, I remember years, decades ago, a young lady named Anna, who's very close to me, near and dear, invited me to come to her baby shower, and it was at a bar. And I remember I almost wasn't going to go because, you know, all my training and all my recovery had said, don't go to bars. Like these are bad people, places, and things. But that kind of logic is like this logic. When I went to prison and they gave me my 10-second assessment that would alter the course of my life for decades to come, they also said that I couldn't change.
Yeah.
That was a part of my diagnosis. It was, and I have it in that box on the other side where they said I couldn't change. I was incapable of change. Right. Now, mind you, I didn't have a life sentence. was they were going to parole someone who couldn't change, right? Like that was the beginning of this, right? Now, as I thought about it, though, I had to come to terms with the fact that I really loved this young lady, you know, like a daughter, and I wanted to be there for her because I had she was a youth, you know, I had raised her in the streets through my program, and now she was pregnant, and you know, and looked up to me as a mentor, like saw me as a father figure, I'm guessing, right? And so she invited me to her baby shower. Now, you know, and so what was I going to do? And I'm saying it might have been for some of you the right thing to do would be like to pass on that, depending on where you're at in recovery, and find another way, right? Find another way to do that. For me, at my stage though, where I was at, I knew I had to face the fact that I had to be responsible for the choices I would make in any environment. That I didn't want no environment to control me. But again, that's not to say, hey, risk it for a biscuit, you know, go hang out in crack houses to see if you got it. No, that's not what we're saying. I went, I had a soda. I fucking took the like Sam's Club size box of diapers with me. I hung out and I said, yeah, I got stuff to do though. You know, I can't stay, but I wanted to come honor you and the baby and, you know, love you. And I interacted for a little bit, didn't make it seem weird, even though I was really stressed out inside because it was like my first time. And, you know, and I did what I had to do and I left. And that wasn't a ticket for me to be like, I'm negotiating with my, no. It's being trying to normalize my life and do what normal people do, but also knowing the limitations of what my normal is. You know, I didn't go there to drink. I didn't go there to socialize with alcohol. I went there to support a young lady who was having a baby. Very different, right? But remember in the past, it was we go to these places to engage with the substances or to engage with specific behaviors. That's not the same spirit here. It was, and again, I'm not advocating for those of you who aren't there yet to go try it and then fall flat on your fucking face. No. And you need to have an accountability partner. At that time, it was my wife, and I told her about my nerves, and she was so supportive. She was like either or, whatever you do, I'll support you. But you know, if you do that, you got it.
Heck yeah.
You know, and connect with me. Like, let me know if you're okay. Like, let me know when you get in and when you get out. You need an accountability partner. That's those guardrails, right? The safety bars. That what do you put into place? The idea wasn't to go there to try to outsmart addiction. That's
right.
You know, and that's a part of the recovery process. Now, what do you do when you fall down and you get back up? Well, let's not short step it. You got back up. You got to get back up. You fall down, and we all do it. We all fall down, man, and it's not always to such an extent that it's life altering. You know, sometimes for me it's self-deprecating thoughts, right? You know, like I'm not worthy. I don't belong here. You know, that the beginning of a long trap. Right. And in prison, one thing, remember, I don't know if they did this to you, but this was the thing. If you ever drank or ever used drugs, they wanted to blame all your problems on that fact.
So, point of note for that, when I was in Cognitive 5B in Minnesota, they wanted to kick me out because it was in my paperwork. I never committed a robbery or an assault while under the influence. Like, I used dope. I drank and I smoked pot and I did acid and I bumped a little coke, tooted a little coke once in a great while. But none of my robberies, none of my assaults, none of my attempted murders, none of those were done under the influence of drugs or alcohol, right? I did all of those sober because I didn't want to take a chance at being fucked up and doing something even dumber, right? Which is still like, how do we do something stupid but smart, right? So I was trying to be as smart as I could while doing something stupid, right? And so they were very angry at me because I wouldn't lay the blame for my criminal behavior.
You're in denial.
Right. And they were like, we're going to kick you out. And so I was like, all right, I'll say whatever the fuck you want me to say. I just want to get this completed. But it was very degrading to me inside to blame my shit on something that it had nothing to do with. I was a shitty person. I wasn't an addict or an alcoholic. That's not why I acted the way I did. I just had no other tools. Thank you so much. I had no other tools in my toolbox. You see that? Swap out one coffee cup for a new one.
See that? Yeah. I just get a man-sized cup so I don't have to do that.
Yeah. So, and it was a big thing in the program for me. Like, I wasn't participating. I was in denial. I was all these other things. But even my PSI, like the parole agent, everybody was like, well, no, Monte was never under the influence when he did it. Like that wasn't my addiction. Like, I didn't need to commit robberies to feed my junkie habits. Like, the robberies were my habits.
But again,
that was my
we always gotta clarify for our audience, this may not apply to you.
Right.
Right.
Just like that didn't apply to me.
But a lot of why Farmers is here is for this reason exactly, because I went through the identical issue where, look, did I have a problem? Yes. Alcohol was included at times in that behavior. Drugs were included at time in that behavior. But I can tell you, like Monte, 90% of the time it just wasn't. 95, fucking 99% of the time, it happened to be a coincidence in my case.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, if I'm not responsible in every other area in my life, why would I ever be responsible with substances? However, ironically, when I became responsible, the use of substances was also a part of that change process, right? Like it would be a dishonor to say, yes, it was all an alcoholic related time period in my life. It would be disrespectful to true alcoholics whose lives are governed by the use of alcohol, right? And I have worked and treated many folks like that. I have treated folks who are so bad they lost the use of their legs. They developed something called neuropathy. I've dealt with folks whose doctor advised against them stopping because their body would probably shut down. It had to be like a medically induced withdrawal, like where they would have to go to the hospital and do it under doctor's care. And I'm telling you, it's a deadly disease. And not everyone has to get that far to have a problem, but I've seen people that far with that problem. Now, I also suffer with something that is just genetic, if you ask me, which is an extremely high tolerance. So I have to drink an enormous amount of alcohol to start showing, not feeling, but showing the effects of alcohol, right? Like all my family has a very high tolerance for that. Ironically, though, all my family has a very high tolerance for violence as well. All my uncles on my mom's side of the family or on my dad's side of the family died from violence except one. All my mom's brothers were in the military, which is not that far off from where everybody else was at with violence, right? And my mom was extremely violent. My stepdad, like, right? Violence was even a more prominent issue. But everyone in that time period, that era was like, oh, it's alcohol. No, not for us. For some, yes, but not for us. Ours has always been the emotional issues, the cognitive issues, right? The unresolved family history. And alcohol can be a part of that. But it's not the cause of that. It's not the underlying root of that. In fact, there is a guy out there named Kerry, he has identified research. One thing I shared this with you before,
Yep.
and it really is behind the success I had in the reentry program that you were coming to years ago. Carrie said, and this is data driven. This is not just an opinion. This is, they analyze tens of thousands of folks here. If you get somebody sober, it doesn't reduce recidivism. It goes further. Hold on. Wait for more. There's more here. If you get someone stable mental health wise, get them on their medication, it does not reduce recidivism. If you get somebody a stable job, it does not reduce recidivism. Here's the bell ringer. If you do all three at the same time, it does not reduce recidivism. Like, you know, so we're talking about individuals who have those as individual problems. Doesn't move the needle. You can also be talking about a person who has all three of those problems, gets balanced in all those areas, does not reduce recidivism. And for those of you in traditional settings where they do counseling and all that, that may be a shocker to you because most programs are still putting all their eggs in these baskets. However, my challenge to you is look at that success rate with those clients and you'll see it's extremely low, probably less than 10%. Less than 10%. That's like shooting the basketball and only making it less than 10% of the time. Swinging the bat and only hitting the ball less than. Nobody's going to want you on their fucking team, much less the bench, right? Like, no, you're right. Nowhere else in the field can you get by with statistics like that. And then when you have statistics like that, here's how they brush it off. It's client failure.
Yeah. We talk about that. So
the client failed. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And so what moves the needle? How do we battle this? How do we battle this, right? Like, so how do we battle this knowing that almost nothing in and of itself and together changes the outcome? What is the ingredient that we're missing in that, right? Where are we looking for as formers, as men and women who are concerned with our community, right? Like, because for me, you guys, I'm a former, right? But the whole basis of OCOR, our community, our responsibility is how can I better my community? It's not just about me anymore, right? Like I'm comfortable finally in my life that I'm not afraid of hurting people unfairly, right? Like I'll protect myself. I'll protect those who are innocent and around me. But my drive now is how do I protect my community? What do we do to move that needle within recovery?
Yeah. A lot of good comments, and I'm going to talk about Jim's statement because I go the other direction, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But you know, like Jim is a good example. Like all these comments are really solid. Like these are real life issues, right? Like yes, that's you can have a problem with alcohol and also be an asshole. So just getting sober doesn't remove the assholeness, right? Like, and I'm a prime example of that myself, right? The formulas that's why I spent so much time on the road in my career was spreading this message to other professionals, right? And the message that I think I think it's Carly, the message to counselors that you have to like your patients in order to be in this field. Like a lot of counselors have disdain for their patients. Why? Because your clients fail, your clients lie, your clients are dishonest, your clients deceive, they're deceptive, they're manipulative. Yes, there are all those things. And guess what? When I went to school and I signed up for this job, I knew that would be a part of it, right? If you work in the kitchen, do you expect to never get burned by the fire? Right? Can you imagine getting burned by the fire? I'm like, I fucking hate this job. And you've been doing it for 30 years. You never reconciled that it's a part of the job, right?
Yeah.
So these things are important. However, remember, Jim, FA, and this is just my opinion. We're all entitled to. There doesn't need to be a desire. Otherwise, why would we have the word intervention, right? Interventions work. And we have taken some people, right? We have taken some people and put them on a different path, even though that was the last thing they wanted.
Yeah.
What we did was support them, love them, encourage them, held them, and eventually you would develop the desire. Eventually, but if we had to wait for that moment, then we wouldn't have any. Those of us on the outside looking into that person's life wouldn't have any responsibility. And I'm saying, and or yes, and right. A desire.
Yeah.
Remember, our literature clearly says you don't even have to have a desire to be here, because we believe we can be an influence if we're in proximity to you. Let's have that discussion real quick, Monte. We're gonna do science. I'm gonna be Neil deGrasse right now. An ionized atom is an incomplete atom that is missing a proton.
Correct.
So it's this atom floating around, and around this atom, this ionized atom, are all these other elements, right? All the elements of life are around this atom, surrounding this atom, right? Now remember, when it's an incomplete atom, it is actively seeking to complete itself. It is looking for some element to attach to, and to attach to it to make it whole.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that as a person, right? Say an addict, a criminal, an alcoholic is missing something and is looking for something to attach to, or to attach to it to complete it. And the ionized atom is vulnerable to whatever elements are in its environment.
Right.
So it's not even looking for a particular one. It will attach itself to the first thing that's closest to it enough to pull it together, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. It'll just, it's water. Oh, it's steel. It's fire. It's air. Whatever will complete it. It just wants the plus one. It just wants the completion. It doesn't have an affinity for one in particular. It will develop an affinity once it has its element attached to it, right? Oh, I like this, right? Whatever that may be. And that can be a bunch of like suffering, right?
Right.
When you think about the vulnerability of an ionized atom, in the early stages of your recovery, the early stages of your change, what you surround yourself with really fucking matters. Because remember, you're vulnerable. You're so vulnerable. And that teaches on that's what I'm saying. Like Jim, but as a program, that is not our philosophy in a whole. If it works for some, we're all about it. But we do know that, fuck, man, when I changed, that was the last thing I was thinking about doing. I was actively fighting change. There was no fucking desire to change.
Great.
There was a great desire to stay the same. And within that resistance,
I'll take that farther. At the beginning of my change, there was a great desire to grow in my violent behavior and lifestyle.
Aspiration.
There was still, right, I still needed to get higher. Like, I needed to be the biggest. I needed to be the toughest. So for me, and Jim, I agree with you. Some people, it is that desire.
Yeah.
I had no desire. I had the opposite desire.
So I think it's fair to say the FA approach to that is, it's not a requirement to have that, but if you've got it, great. Like, then we want to build on that.
Yeah.
Right. We want to build on that. But for a lot of us coming, man, we're so disgruntled. We're so sure we've never been smarter than we were in those days. Right.
Right.
Like, that's just not what would have done it for us. Like, if it had been left up to me to take on that spark of change, I'd still be in the hole. I'd still be in prison. Like,
talking to fucking Sparky about the same shit you were talking about 20 years ago.
Like it never breathed a second between us, right? Like,
yeah.
And so on that note is, in change and in recovery, you do become right. Look at Amy. I remember that. But let me tell you about that night. Is it okay to talk about that night, Amy? Let me know if I can talk about that night. I don't want to talk about anything that you're not cool with. But on that note, the process of wanting to change, once you get to that point, right, you are vulnerable, because what you've done is you said, I want to exchange one thing for another. Right? I want to exchange one thing for another. And as a result of that, you become vulnerable to whatever is in there. And to Jim's point, what I really think is important about, he's like, per that group, they said they signed off on me. And I wholeheartedly believe that group probably felt like, oh, we've solved this motherfucker's problems.
Right.
However, they were misguided and they didn't know it. They themselves didn't know that their training and their experiences and their own personal beliefs were misguided in what it would take to change. Kerry, the guy who said, hey, these big three are actually the small three. There are other things that are bigger than this. And to answer your question, which is a very long circle to get back to, like what is it? What helps? Well, you've got to address the way you think about things. That's first and foremost. For example, simple things. Let's say you've got a comb in your hair when you go to work, and your supervisor says, hey, you got to take that comb out of your hair. Your reaction to that is suit up. You're still reacting to things like you're in the hole, like you're still in the prison, right? This motherfucker ain't going to tell me what to do, right? We've got to now, I've got to help you unpack that in my office. You got fired because you told this motherfucker he can't tell you what to do. And you walked out of there very proudly with your comb in your hair. And now you're facing revocation. Right. And so,
or homelessness.
And so when you unpack that, you have to have, he cannot see, he's incapable of seeing that this is no longer the Department of Corrections.
Right.
That's PTSD. When you see the Department of Corrections all around you and you're walking around fucking free or semi-free. There are no bars, but they tell you the bars are always there, but you just don't know which room has the bars.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're reacting to things like that. Or here, let's do this. You come into my office and you say, the reason I have a giant bandage on my head is because I got hit in the back of the head with a giant fucking stick. And I'm like, did you defend yourself? And you're like, no. And why not? Well, because, I'm on paper and I don't want to go back to prison. There's no order for any inmate or person on parole to have to let yourself be killed so you don't go back to prison. Right? Like we got to find a balance there.
Yeah.
And so what we spend a lot of time doing, I'm really oversimplifying here, but what we have to spend a lot of time doing is helping people find the new balance in life. Because we just don't know it exists. 2 + 2 = 5, and we swear by it. And I have to show you another formula. I think somebody said the formula is broken, right? We have to teach you another formula that actually works for you. And little by little. And now that's part one. Monte, what you witnessed yourself and what Amy experienced with me was the level of acceptance for who you were and where you were at. That's a critical piece. And here, so it goes back to who was that was asking for relationship, right? That goes back to the fact that
relationship recovery.
People need to feel like they belong.
Yeah.
And that they're okay and that they are accepted, right? And a lot of times you go to these treatments and all you hear about are rules, and that if you break those rules, these are the consequences. I am not here to be your friend. I am here to do this. I'm here to do that. But you and the 300 cases I had at RVM, they could tell you how I treated them. I didn't discharge one person because they were a fuck up. I never picked up the phone and reported you to your agent when you were fucking up. Yeah. Right? My door was never closed to you when you did fuck up and needed to come back. I never said, yeah, but, or here are the conditions, or here are the strings. And here's what I found by doing that. It wasn't that anything went. I could rely on natural consequences to handle whatever needed to be handled. It wasn't my job to impose anything in addition to that. My job was to show you a different way of responding to the world and of how and how you could be responded to that was different, which was love, acceptance, unconditional regard, seeing you as a pot. And then that was part two. Part three is advocating in the system for fair and humane treatment of the people that come to see me. And I can tell you, 50% of my job was arm wrestling with the gorilla called DOC, the gorilla called the DA's office, the gorilla called the judges, the gorilla called, Gateway Technical College, the gorilla called the Home Renters Association, the gorilla called employers, everything, the gorillas. I was fighting a fucking cage of gorillas saying, hey, you've got to treat these people better if you want better results. Because when you stick your foot out in front of somebody and they trip, it isn't because the motherfucker wasn't looking where he was going. Right? Like, totally you play a part in this. And I successfully got that community to surround you guys. Not perfectly, because you can't get everyone on board, but more than before. More than before. And here's the proof in the pudding. It's the same principles we put into FA. The recidivism rate pre-program for the high-risk offenders that I was working, so-called offenders that I was working with, year one was about 35%. That was seen as pretty good. Yep. That same person had the likelihood of going back to prison at a rate of 75% by year three. That was also seen better than somebody not in a program, right? So 35 and 75. All 3 years that I ran that program, the recidivism rate for the same people, the same population, and I saw twice as many in a shorter period of time that they had their entire life of that program, was 6%. 6% year one, 6% year two, 6% year three. So this belief that you would naturally have a higher risk of going back to prison by year three went out the window. The belief that 35% was good enough went out the window. And so now you got to ask questions like, what are we not doing? Well, one, we followed the literature, the data. It said, don't put it all in these baskets. AODA, mental health, employment and housing. Those things are superficial when it comes to what we're dealing with. Not superficial in the fact that those are basic needs that everyone needs to have met in order to feel secure. He said, those aren't the primary things that will get you where you want. These are. And so here's what we had to do. Here, to answer your question very succinctly, Monte, we had to deal with your thinking. We did have to get you stable in those areas, but that was just one of 5 other criteria that we had. So we did that. We also addressed that, but we didn't say doing that would solve your problems. We said this will help us along the way. Yep. We had to change your attitude about victims. That's an important piece. Victim empathy was a big one we had to work on. Right? And then you got folks who say, well, I have a victimless crime. We have to work on that kind of thinking. Right? We had to get you to stop going to places that we knew would trip you up. And this was all, remember, day one type stuff, all in the beginning. Right? And then, believe it or not, you had to feel that you were safe wherever you lived. And that's a big one because a lot of folks are stuck where they're stuck at when they get out of prison, right? And most of and for anybody who is in the chat, if you've ever been on supervision, give me raise your hand in the chat if you've ever been told, hurry up and get a fucking job.
Yeah.
Right? Hurry up and get a job. You want to know what we were doing? The complete opposite.
Yeah.
I know you're broke. I know you're damn near homeless. I know you're hungry. I know you need clothes. You may not be ready for a job. Let's work on some things as quickly as we can to get you ready. That way, your ass ain't getting fired because somebody told you to take the comb out your hair. Let's get you ready. Right? But the system before that said, jobs, jobs, jobs. And if you don't, I'm going to hit you in the head with this big old stick. Right? And you
see, I got lucky. Let me be honest.
All day long.
I walked out the door after 18 years. I had quite a bit of money saved up. And Tony Casciotti said, Monte, I don't care if you go to work. You paid all your child support. You paid all your court fees. You paid all your fines. He was like, you have a big chunk of money. Don't blow it all in one place. Be responsible. Show me that you can do it, but don't worry about working until you're ready. Like, he wanted me to spend my first month, remember? Because that's when I met you. He was like, go to a meeting a day. You're on the bracelet. I'll give you out time. You tell me when the meeting is. You go to a meeting a day. I don't care where it is or what it is. And I'm like, what? that was how I got my out time, was to go to meetings. And then that was the first thing you told me, right? The first week that we started seeing and working, you were like, listen, you'll get a job at some point. What are you thinking about right now? Like, and I was like, fuck you mean, what am I thinking about right now, motherfucker? I'm thinking about you called me a bitch in group. That's what I'm thinking about, fucking pendejo, right? Like, what fuck you mean, right?
Just for the audience, that was with so much love, though. It was like
Yeah.
butterscotch wrapper.
Fucking asshole. But yeah, man, I tell the same thing to the guys who I talk to who are incarcerated now, and they'll be like, well, what's the first thing you did? And I was like, breathe. The first thing I did was breathe. And then the second thing I did is experience the terror of being free, right? And process the fact that I was terrified of not being in a cage. And then I reached out to people who understood that, right? Because I couldn't do it without understanding it. Like, I was terrified. 18 years, man. I came out here and everything was different but the same, right? Like, everything was so much different but the same. I didn't know how to cope with that. If I had went straight to work the day I came home, I'm not sure I could have handled that. Now, I only waited,
even
like,
when you were getting work, it was hard to hang on to work, right? Like, you were struggling with that.
Well, no, I worked at Toppers. I worked at Toppers for 5 years.
That job.
Moving up from Toppers, leaving Toppers was the most difficult thing I ever did. And look, Justin Martin, Dave Barry, Tracy Pickleman, thank you guys. You guys took a chance on a 90-day out fucking 20-year convict to deliver pizza who was the driver in a string of armed robberies, right? You guys took a shot. Justin has stood by my side since that day, same as Dave and Tracy. Like, thank you guys, right? But it was a hard thing to leave that job.
Yeah.
Multiple gratitude, a false sense of loyalty. It took Justin Martin telling me, Monte, you can make more money somewhere else. I need you, but I'd rather watch you succeed. Yeah. Right? Like, I'd rather watch you succeed, bro. You're going to fucking be a delivery boy for the rest of your fucking life, running pizzas and living on tips. Or you can fucking start. And it was the same thing you were telling me. Jim Schatzman was telling me, Monte, you can never fly high if you're sitting on a park bench with a pigeon, right? Like that was his exact analogy to me. Monte, if you want to be an eagle, you can't eat breadcrumbs with pigeons, man. He's like, don't forget them, protect them, help them, but stand the fuck up and fly.
My first job was working the drive-thru at McDonald's, and my best friend's brother-in-law waited 90 days to give me that opportunity because he wanted to make sure that I was, that I was sincere about it. Even for a fucking drive-through McDonald's, he was gatekeeping that to make sure I was legit, right? And that's where I started, and immediately I started getting recognized. Like, some lady gave me a business card, so like, you don't belong here. Like, you should be doing something else. Here's my card. Yeah. Shit like that, right? But also when the owners walked in, they hid me in the freezer because of my tattoos, right? So, so a big old whopping gang tattoo, yeah. Right? So they're like, you got to go in the freezer. We don't want them to see you. So you know what I did when I was in the freezer? I didn't even bat an eye. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't bat an eye because I was grateful. I restocked the freezer. I organized the freezer, cleaned shit up. Yeah. I just did what I could while I was in. I was just happy to be there. And yep. We all have our starting places, and that's kind of what I meant in the beginning, where I was like, we all have these thoughts that I can't do much more than this. I don't think I deserve to do much more than this. I can never be more than this. This is that kind of thinking, right? And so all of this is talking about how we get back up, right? We just can't. We got to be realistic about what we got to do. So remember, if it's your first time relapsing, which would be unusual, but we do run into folks who are really giving it their first attempt. Understand that this is the process for some of us, right? And so you're not weird. You're not alone. You didn't do something nobody else has done. You're looking at people. What you see in many ways, when you see somebody who's 10, 15, 20 years in recovery, what you get to see is where they're at today, but you didn't get to see where they were at 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that looked probably just as ugly, if not uglier than your process.
Mm.
Right? So it's you can't compare yourself to us and be like, I'll never be that way, or I'll never get that far. That's not the case. It is one day at a time sometimes. It's important to keep it simple. It's important to understand that, you'll recover, but you have to stick with it. Right? You got to keep going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym every day, what makes you think you don't got to work on yourself every day? Right? If you are trying to get your areas of your life fit, you'll notice that when you find a particular part of your life that needs your attention, it takes daily repetitive focus. Right? I would also encourage those of you, respecting Amy, her request to talk about this, I would encourage you to talk to somebody over and over and over and over again, right? You build certain muscles by what you talk about. And the person who's listening should hopefully be able to insert wisdoms that give you hope, that give you strength, that give you encouragement. And sometimes that type of language, from Monte, and I'm not even lying here. If I would have said, "Oh, Monte, pobrecito," like, bro, it's so hard for you to be here right now. I know you just did 400 years, and everyone thought you were extinct and shit, but here you are, right? You're the last one of your kind. Monte probably looked at me like, "What the fuck is this dude talking about?" But you know what got to Monte? It wasn't the word bitch. It was the fact that the shit was real.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
And not everyone wants that real. Like, some people need, like, "Oh, pobrecito, let me hug you." And some people need the foot in the ass. But you don't always know who needs what. But Monte certainly looked like he needed the foot in the ass.
And throughout this last decade plus, right, I've referred back mentally to that conversation. And for those of you who don't know, I'd been out of prison a few weeks, and I was sitting in this group where I barely knew this fucking pendejo, right? Like, I barely knew this dude. He was just some fucking muscle, dummy sitting in a fucking circle with me, who turned out to be the writer and the founder of the program. And I'm like, I was talking about how hard it was to be out. Like, I didn't know how to do anything. I was afraid of everybody and everything. I didn't want to cause any problems. I didn't want to do this, and I was afraid of that. And it got around to him. He waited too. Like, I was in the opposite sides of the group, right, in the circle, and there was 30 or 40 of us in this fucking circle. So I'm halfway through. He's at the end because he finishes. And it goes around these next 14 fucking people, and it comes back to Sammy. And we've heard all kinds of stories since then. And Sammy goes, "Hey, my name's Sammy. I'm a former. I'd like to speak to Monte Azul. I got a question for you, bro. Were you a bitch in prison?" I was like, "What? Fuck is this dude talking to?" Right? He was like, No, calm down. I know what it sounded like, but think about what I just asked you. Were you a bitch in prison? Did you stand on your shit? Did you stand up? Did you do what you needed to do? Did you work through what the 20 years of pain you suffered? How did you come home if you were a bitch in prison? So you couldn't have been, right? Why are you going to be a bitch in the street? And I'm like, you know what? That's twice. Like, fuck you. But I got it, right? All of those things that made me strong enough to survive incarceration, right, made me stronger than enough to survive freedom. Right. And I think back at that a lot. And it did open my eyes at that moment. I understood. Right. But no, if you had like, "Oh my God," and some of the people in group did that, they're like, "Oh, Monte." And it was like, yeah, right. Okay, peace. Like, I don't need your sympathy. I don't need your.
It's not your language at the time, It's just not, like, I do get patched up from certain folks, but that's our relationship. But then there are others who are like, "You need to get off your ass and you need to go to the gym." Right. And I'm in a wonderful relationship with a woman who understands when I need the hug and when I need the foot. Right.
Yeah, she's
And
multilingual.
she is. But that's a part of my safety rack too, right? Like I have to teach the people around me what I need at certain times.
Yep.
Right. And how I need it. And I might think I know how I need it, but as they get to know you, they'll give you it. I knew what you needed to hear at that time. I knew that you needed, first of all, to respect the person who was going to say something to you. And that's a very big thing for us in recovery. A lot of times we'll dismiss something when we don't think we need to respect the person who is saying it. We'll just discount the whole person. If we kind of like what Heather's talking about, these assholes, the person's a whole asshole, not just in that moment, they're a whole asshole. And so I've got to write that whole person off, right? Now throw the baby out the window, right? And so a lot of times people, me knowing prison life and street life, you don't respect people who you think you can just either manipulate or intimidate or not control, right? And so I know that I could see the language barrier. I saw the barrier of messaging getting through to you. You needed to be. I needed to tap into the part of you that you were still relating to. Today I can hug you, right? But then that wasn't what you were going to subscribe to. And I'm not saying everyone here should do that. Like, I wouldn't recommend that for most folks. But I'm also coming from a world where I speak that language, right? And I remember getting the language, I was talked to like that too, Monte, and it inspired me. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
In fact, the person who did it was a counselor who said, I think on my graduation day in front of all my peers and my family, I think you're on some bullshit. We'll see you again. And I was like,
right. Thanks a lot, motherfucker.
Hey, and then I see him. He's a colleague now.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I told you what you needed to hear to get you to do what you needed to do.
Didn't need to believe that to know what you needed to believe in you.
Yeah. And so, it's when we're deep in this, man, we will take that risk. And that risk is, and when you see somebody struggling, sticking your hand out is a risk because they may not want it.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can carry yourself, spiritually, consistently, eventually, I do think you make a difference, right? Now let's get over to, I hope that answers some of the question, what to do when you fall out. It's not the typical go to meetings type shit. You know what to do, but these are the principles that underlie why we do the things that we do, right? Now, I really like what Heather is saying. Like, she's learning to say, this isn't about them. It's about me and what I need to do, right? I save my words a lot of times from folks. Like I won't even share the words if I know that tomorrow it probably won't change anything, right? And I mean that with like where I'm having conflict. Like my wife is, I don't know if this is normal, but she likes to tell everyone all her feelings all the time, especially when they have done something to offend her. So she wants to, I want to tell you how I feel, right? And I'll ask her, I got you, Monte. I'll ask her, what do you hope to accomplish? Right. And she knows where that comes from, because it's not like you're stupid. No, it's like, what are you trying to do? Like, tell me what you think the end result will be. And 9 times out of 10, she's just like, well, I just want them to know. And I'm like, okay, I hear you, but what do you hope that does? And then she'll tell me, she'll kind of think about it. And I'm like, and do you think saying this will help you get there? And she's like, probably not. And then she's like, but I still want them to hear it.
Yeah, listen.
To each your own.
that 4'11", 87-pound.
Is that 4'11"?
Twig of a shotgun, right? Like, I'm not arguing with her.
An empty shotgun. Hey, dude, when we're arguing, I'm like, can you remember that you're tiny right now? Can you get back in your skin size? Like,
Nope. She has no idea. Like, her and Lizzie.
This is off even more every fucking winter so bad. I'm like,
yeah.
That'd get me in prison. That's a 15-year assault right there. 15-year assault right there.
Remember, you're in Missouri.
You can beat them with a stick that's not bigger than an inch thick.
No bigger than the rule of thumb, right?
So we got to wrap up soon, but I want to get back to recovery relationship, and we can dive into this more next time. We'll just make a note for that, right? You're not gonna want to hear this shit, and I've said it maybe 3 or 4 shows ago. When people do relapse, ironically, 9 out of 10 times, 9.9 out of 10 times, when you get to the resulting core issue, it's typically a relationship. People in recovery resist changing the dynamics or the relationships more than any other thing. Like they don't really want to talk about what it takes to change to a healthy relationship. They just don't. And here's why. And I have some like science behind this. 99% of what drives like a chemical dependency, a physical dependency, are emotions, right? It's these unregulated emotions, and we're either trying to cut them off or we have too many, and we're just like overreacting to either or, right? And that is what's fueling. And I can get into some science. I can get into some science about the synapses and the nerve endings and all that, right? But 99% of the relapses and the cause of relapses are emotions, right? And what is more emotional than a relationship? And sometimes, and I am going to be straightforward. It's not, I think it's one thing to talk about mom, dad, sister, brother, cousins, shit like that. That is a fucking beast in and of itself because of all the family history there.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like sexual, intimate relationships. People relapse at the same rate for both of those, but a lot of times it's the significant other that causes problems for this person. Not that the significant other, it's where they have the issue, right? Is in that significant other relationship. And what people don't want to hear is that we have to change these types of relationships. And Monte, you're a good case of that. Like you stayed in some very toxic situations for years until you finally were able to make some changes. And really the only area in your life that you were suffering was in your relationships, right?
Yeah.
It was significant.
Right. I stayed single for almost 3 years. So like I really didn't know. And here's something I tell people all the time. I didn't know who I was, let alone who I could be to a partner. Right? Like until I knew who I was alone, right? How could I offer anything to a partner? And it bettered my life, not just my relationship, right? I'm married and everything else. It bettered my life in totality. Like my daughter's mother and I are closest of friends. We confide in each other regularly. And that was something nobody could have foretold, right? Like nobody could have seen that how we ended, that we would become what we are today. And like it took me having to walk away. So I tell everybody, listen, if you're getting into recovery and you're not partnered, don't become partnered. Wait, you don't know who you are. You haven't been sober in 20 years. You're still 15. Like get to know you without alcohol, without drugs, without the gang banging, without the street life, without the thuggery. Get to know who you are first, because you don't know you. You know gangbanger you know thief you know drug addict you know alcoholic you, but you don't know
hurt you. Like
yeah,
that's really where I mean you just don't unpack all this stuff overnight, right? It takes time. And relationship recovery, there are 8 relationships that we have. Did you know that? And maybe we talk about that next week, right?
Yeah, it's in the literature.
The 8 relationships that we have to be addressed. And most of us didn't even know we had more than one. Right. And so to be in recovery, again, just like going to the gym.
Some of us didn't know we had one, right? Some of us forget about the self relationship, the relationship with me, right? Some
and
people
it's the
feel
most
like
significant
they're truly
one, right?
alone. Right?
We're trying to figure out other people. We ain't even figured out.
We don't fucking know me.
Or we know we have an issue, but we don't think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Right? It's but. Again, this is just human nature. No one in here is guilty of anything. It's just the way it is, right? We recognize that relationships are the number one reason that is associated with relapse. And so next week, what we can look forward to is diving into the 8 relationships and what we think might be a good prescription for recovering around relationships. And I think there'll be some things you just don't want to hear. There'll be things that are very practical, like, okay, so I get that you're not going to leave your husband. I get that you're not going to leave your wife. We still need to figure out what needs to change, what needs to be done different. We can do that. But that's not carte blanche to say, okay, I don't have to give up my toxic ass relationships to do this. I can make this toxic relationship work. No, that's not what I'm saying, right? If there's something to be saved, let's save it. If there's nothing to be saved,
let's
we
go.
need to talk about that. And that means, making some tough decisions, like divorce after 14 years of marriage,
Yeah.
right? Like that's tough.
Yeah.
A breakup, right? Like it's tough. And I've been stuck in some very toxic relationships, and those toxic relationships touched my membership at FA. Right. And it's not that I need to be ashamed of that. It's human nature, and relationships will fuck you up, man. And it takes time. But you know what? I don't wait for years. I typically get my shit together in relatively short order, but it was tough. And we could talk about that also, right? And the support you need, the guidance you need to do those things. So first things first, in getting ready to talk about this, the question to you is, to the audience is, are you ready to have that discussion? Doesn't mean I'm asking you to do anything. Are you ready to just be honest about that part of the discussion? And we can unpack that. So one thing, I know we got to get out of here, brother. It is that time. I've got 5 hours to get ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm making table nachos, just like in the joke.
I'm making nachos. Making nachos. I told Julie yesterday we got to go get nachos. She's like, "Well, I'm like, tomorrow's Super Bowl. What you think?"
Right.
We love you guys. Amy, Jim, Heather, Kirk,
Heather,
Carly. Who else is in there? Daniel.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Well, you remember Daniel? That was the brother that sweated with us when he came up with me, my brother, Skylar. So,
okay.
Jess, we love you, babe. So just remember, you guys. Let me reiterate. TikTok, look us up. Formers Anon 1, FORMERSANON, the number 1. Shoot us a thank you. And while you're in here, all 8 of you, if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the share. Thank you for the comments and the participation. Every week, like we do our best. And just so you guys know, like Sammy and I have other things we could do, but we don't have a better time than what we do. This means a lot to both of us. Like you guys think we're here to help you, you're helping us just as much. Like we still live our lives daily. And you guys are a huge part of that life. And that's
hey, Sabrina asked for the literature.
Yeah, I was going to message her and send
private message Monte.
Yep.
And we can add an attachment in the messenger of the most recent literature. I am working, believe it or not, on some additional components for that. Eventually, we want to start recording some of the stories from some of our formers to add to the book, and then eventually have this published, as a book for us. So, but for right now, you can get the manuscript.
If you're just coming into the feed and we're ending, please go back and watch over. It'll be available shortly. Sammy, I love you, brother. Thank you for everything. For the rest of you guys, we will see you tomorrow night between 8:30 and 9 p.m. for a shorter version.
Ish.
Yeah, between 8:30 and 9.
Ish.
It's our
Indian
time. We love you guys. Thank you for everything.